My name is Walter T. Treweek, and my rank was ETN, Electronic Technician 2. A lot of stuff happened when I was on ship. I was on the USS Essex, CVS 9. I spent 2 years on ship, going from port to port. Saw a lot of countries, 22 countries. The thing about the Navy and about being on ship is there's always something happening. And our ship was no different, and there were some things that were neat. When I was went into the Navy in 1965, there was only one atomic submarine at the time. The rest were all regular submarines. And so our job was to hunt down submarines and find out where they were, list them so we knew where all the Russian subs were. At the time, we were over in the northern Arctic, where it was daylight 24 hours a day. And that took some getting used to anyhow, daylight 24 hours a day, because it's hard to sleep. But there were a lot of Russian subs over there. And so we were constantly, planes were up, helicopters were up 24 hours a day, hunting them down. And it was fun, because we got to see a lot of them. But we were hunting them, but they were also watching us. And every day, 3 times a day, one of their big planes, it had 6 props on it, so it was huge, carried 29 people. But they would buzz our flight deck every day, 3 times a day. And you could hear, I don't care where you were in the ship, you could hear this plane coming over, because it was loud. Now, I worked up in the island because I was in electronics, and so I was up there, and every day when they would come, I'd go out onto the railing and watch them. And they would go right over the flight deck. And the typical thing that would happen is our ship would call air defense. Gave them a lot of practice, I guess. We had obsolete 5-inch guns on our ship that you couldn't, I don't think you could shoot anything down with, but they would go to air defense, and the sirens would go off, GQ, general quarters, and everybody would man their stations, and this big old plane, which was, the wingspan on it was about as long as our flight deck, come flying right over. He'd go out, and they'd come low, very low, go out, make a turn, come back, make a turn, come back, and then they'd be going till the next time. And this particular day, and again, it's daylight, always was, I remember it well because I went out onto the railing with my buddy who was taking movies with his little camera, his movie camera. But Bell and Howell, back then we didn't have digital, but he went out, this plane came down, made a pass, turned, came back, made a pass, and on that turn to make its last pass, I don't know what they did, but the wing, there must have been an unusual swell or something, but they're so low that the wing actually clipped the water. So when it turns like this, the wing hit the water, and it went into the water and exploded like a small atomic bomb going off. I mean, it was bright, and then there was just smoke in pieces, and it was amazing. I mean, to see, it was awful, but you just couldn't believe that it happened. And so what we did, we had submarines in our task force. We had destroyers, we had escorts, because we had a whole convoy. So they went out and fished all the pieces up of this plane and bodies. And as I said, there were 29 members on it, and they found all the bodies. And you don't forget something like that. I remember that 2 days later, a Russian a destroyer pulled up next to our ship, and we highlighted all the pieces that we had over, and bodies and so forth. All the Russian sailors all had beards. And I can remember seeing that. Every one of them had these real long beards. And we were very close because they came in very close so we could highline. In the Navy, accidents happen, and apparently it happens for the Russians too. But that was one thing I will never forget. It reminded me that, whether you're at war or in Vietnam somewhere, or you're on the east side of the United States, you still could die because stuff happened. So that's one story I do really remember, and never forget that. When we pulled into Germany about 4 days later, we went in for liberty and so forth, but there was thousands and thousands and thousands of the German people on the flight deck, on the dock, looking up at us and cheering, and they had banners and all kinds of stuff, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And what we found out was that the people that were taking movies on our flight deck and up on the island of this, where they showed pictures of our obsolete 5-inch guns following this plane, and then they followed it back, and then they exploded. And apparently the Germans thought we shot this Russian plane down, and the Germans did not like the Russians. World War II, I guess. And anyhow, they were on the dock cheering us. We were like conquering heroes, but we didn't do anything. But the truth is, to this day, my dad still thinks we shot it down because he saw the same videos on CBS, but we didn't. It just hit the water.